Right, so welcome back, everybody. This is another TV show review. So I'm sitting kind of far back from the camera because I have this huge pimple right above my lip, and it's the epitome of aggravation. So that's why I'm kind of far from the screen today. But anyways, I don't know where I was when this series first came out. I must have been living on a rock or something, but this series was really good, and I wish I would have been aware whenever it first came out. So that I could do like a episode by episode. And I know it's been like a couple of months since it came out, but I still wanted to do like sort of like a review, discussion, my thoughts, etc. Anyways, so this was a good series. It made me feel some conflicting emotions, I guess, and I'll talk about that later. Like two conflicting emotions. I'll tell it. But anyways, so it starts off with from the beginning of episode 1, showing you two different people, their lives. You have Justin Falls, and then you have Faraday. Now Faraday, of course, he didn't get that name at the very beginning. There was a little bit later on, I think, in the first episode. So he fell from the planet that he was from. He's an alien, of course, from Anthea, and him falling to Earth, it was kind of giving me like fallen angel vibes. And I guess that was like the point. But if y'all haven't read the Bible, what the Bible says about fallen angels, you understand why that made me a little bit uncomfortable, but whatever. But it was interesting seeing him adapt to the new atmosphere, to Earth's atmosphere. His eyes changing, his hair changing, his skin changing, and he adapted pretty fast, which that's no surprise. Like usually these alien beings, like they always adapt like really, really quickly. Like they don't have a choice, it's like either adapt or you kind of get left behind or get messed up, So he adapted very fast. And even with like the whole, speech thing and like, him learning and mimicking people, like I said, really quickly and picking up on the language. Like I said, it's no surprise. And whenever he said he has like 4 stomachs, and him learning very quickly that money answereth all things, and that he needed money to like get from point A to point B. And then he runs into, well, not necessarily runs into, he had intention to meet her, Justin Falls, who was a young woman, or let's say more of like I don't want to say middle-aged woman, but she is taking care of her father, Josiah Falls, and her daughter Molly. And it was really like, I guess, inspiring and really just like touching, like her devotion to her family, like her love for her family. Like she really like put everything on the back burner for her family. Okay. Like she had big dreams. Like she was trying to achieve quantum fusion before she even met Faraday. And she was very brilliant in physics. And that's one thing I was like, I don't know if I should probably do like a review over this, because I'm not a physics person. Like it's interesting watching other people talk about it who know about it. But I suck at physics, y'all. So it kind of like went over my head a little bit. I'm more of a biology person. But I still wanted to do this. Like I still wanted to watch the show too. And so anyways, like she was brilliant. She already was on her way to quantum fusion long before she met Faraday. And she did achieve it, if I'm not mistaken, for like 3 seconds or something like that. And for some odd reason, she used like her lover as like, I guess, a volunteer for the experiment. And now I'm not trying to like be rude and say she should have used somebody like that she didn't care about, or that was like, less expendable or whatever. But I don't, maybe not use your lover for like the deadly experiment that could like take his life. You know what I'm saying? I get it. Maybe nobody wanted to be, the volunteer, but he might have been like, oh, well, I believe in you. I think you can do this. So I'll help you do it. Like, but still, like, I don't know. Anyways. And of course it had fatal repercussions, like, and that was the first thing, like whenever I saw like, her with her father and her daughter, of course the first question came to my mind is, so where's the father, of the child? Like did they get married and get a divorce? I hope nothing happened to him. And of course then they show that, lo and behold, he died. And I was like, dang it. And so I think that was part of why she put her research and her dreams on the back burner, because of that. And of course because her father, who got sick. And it was really sad. But like I said, it was very touching seeing her extreme devotion and love to her family, taking care of her daughter, doing anything and everything, even like just the worst and awful of jobs like that she had to take in order to, take care of them. Like, it was touching, like I said. And then Faraday comes along and he gets, of course, his message from Thomas Newton, which I think apparently there was a movie made in like the 80s with the same name that is like the prequel to this series. I only found out about it like after the fact, but anyways. And I think it has to do with Thomas Newton, what happened with him when he first came to Earth. And so basically you can say that I guess Faraday is like his, like, I want to say like, well, Thomas Newton is like the predecessor, right? And then Faraday is like the understudy maybe. And so he's like giving him instructions, but like basically in these little crumbs. Like that was annoying to me. Like it was like, okay, you're gonna go get Justine Falls. Okay, I got her. What do I do now? Okay, you're gonna like do this. Now you're gonna do that. And I was like, at first I was like, okay, why you can't just give him all the directions like at once? And of course there was a reason for that, which we'll get to later. But he was like, okay, I need you to go and get Justine Falls. Like she lives in New Mexico and you need to find her. She can help you achieve quantum fusion. And of course he does his research on her in his own little way, finds out that she does have a history and a background in physics and quantum fusion. He was like, you have what it takes to help me achieve what I'm trying to do. And because of, like I said, the devotion and the love, the type of person that she is, when she saw him in need, she was like, I can't just leave him. Like, I can't just leave him. And this was the first episode, y'all. I think the first or the second episode. She was like, I can't just leave him. Like, he's getting jumped over there for a couple of dollars. Like, I gotta go help him. So she goes and she stops to help him. And he was like, you need to take me. Like, he was like so demanding. Like, he was a drone apparently, with their alien species. There were drones and there were adepts. You read one or the other. There was no in between apparently. And then the drones only did what they were supposed to do to help achieve like the greater good. There was no like, oh, I want to do this for me personally. No, it was like, no, like basically like bees, and I like that analogy that they made with the bees. Like you're the drone, you help like the adepts achieve what they're trying to achieve. That's your purpose. Once you're done, you're done. And I was like, wow, it's a really empty life though. Like for real, it's an empty life. But he was like really like straight laced, like, no, we have to go to Thomas Newton. We have to go here. We got to go there. We got to go to London. We got to, build the machine. And she was trying to like, it was like this real friction, of course, because you just come in somebody's life and like be telling them like what to do and try to uproot their life and be like, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that. And she was just like, the amount of time she looked at him like he was crazy, it was funny to me. And then when he brought her like in the middle of that like open field and that tornado touchdown, I'm like, bro, she almost just died. And then she was like, at first I didn't believe you. I thought you were tripping on acid for real. But after seeing that and like seeing him communicate with Thomas Newton, she was like, I don't really want to do this, but this is crazy. And I could get back into quantum fusion. And you're telling me that your planet is running out of water and it's about to die and everybody's about to die. You have family and a wife back home, and that Earth is on its way to destruction too. And that with this little core thing that he had, that he could basically save possibly both of them. She was like, I don't know. She again, like she's one of those people, like when there's a responsibility to help somebody in need or be that person to risk it all to help, she was that person. Not just because she was smart and she knew quantum fusion, but because of the heart that she had. And so she was like, fine, okay, where do we have to go? Like, what do we have to do? And so he was like, well, we got to find somebody to help us get to London. And that's when they found that Hatch. I almost called him Thatch. That's when they found Hatch. Now, the relationship between Hatch and his sister, that was a hot mess. She was talking about I absolutely detest you. You tried to steal the patents and sell them from underneath me. And he was like, I didn't do it, I swear. And at first I believed him. I was like, oh, maybe he didn't do it. I don't know. He seems kind of convincing to me. But apparently he was lying that entire time. And then like the other guy, the CIA agent guy, which we'll talk about later, gaslit her about it. I was like, that's not a good thing to do to your sister, bro. And she was like, I'm cutting you out of, like, you're losing your job, you're losing your assets, you're not going to be on the board anymore in this company. She was trying to destroy him. I was like, listen, I know you're pissed at him. He was wrong for what he did, but are you going to destroy him? He's still your brother, though. Like, y'all share blood. And then the dynamic between her and her son, I was like, I feel bad for this kid because she seems like a very emotionally unavailable and unstable mother. I'm just saying. It seemed like he had a better relationship with Hatch as his uncle than he did with his own mother. That's just the vibes I was getting. But anyways, so while they're all doing this, trying to get to Hatch and trying to get to London, the guy, Spencer Clay, the CIA agent, I couldn't stand that dude. He was so just, like, I feel like all of like the worst qualities, like, how like people in like other, I guess, parts of the world, they say like, oh, you Americans, y'all are selfish, y'all are rude, y'all are disrespectful, y'all are dishonorable, like y'all are ungrateful. I feel like all of the bad qualities of an American, were like wrapped up in him times like 5. And that's really saying something, because that guy wasn't even American. He was a Russian. And they were like explaining later on, of course, like the relationship that he had with that woman. Her name was Drew. And I was like, okay, what's the deal with the two of them? Because she acted like this is like her child, her favorite son or something like that. And, she was like, listen, I know you want to like go pounce on this whole Thomas Newton thing, but you need to be careful. And if I can trust you with this, I'll send you to go do it if I can trust you with this. And he was like, oh yeah, you can trust me. Like, he was like seeming pretty hell bent on like getting her to like trust him with this ordeal. And then he goes into the cabin and finds a guy. I think he was like one of the people who helped like interrogate Thomas Newton or something like that, like back in the day. And that video was something else. That video was disturbing. Okay, it was like, how is Thomas Newton alive? Because I'm not convinced that he's alive after that interrogation that they put him through. And then they use the X-ray, which is when you find out that the X-ray is what messes them up. I was like, I don't believe he's alive. Like, I don't know how he's gonna survive that. And then he was like, oh my God. I'm like, oh my God, now you was up in there. This what you wanted to find. And he was talking to the guy that I think was like, I guess he was like on the team that had captured him or tortured him or something like that. I can't remember exactly. And then the guy unalived himself. And I was like, oh my God. He didn't got mixed up in something bad. But I feel like it only made him hungrier to find out. And I was like, see, these kind of situations are never good. And then he got this young woman named Lisa. And he employed her basically to help them find Faraday, because they found out about Faraday pretty quickly, which this is the CIA we're talking about. They're not gonna not find out quickly. And he was like, he was even rude to her. I was like, she's here to help you, sir. Like, what is your problem? And I was like, this is not good, because you know how these situations end. And then, like I said, with the whole quantum fusion thing, and he was talking about basically a cleaner, more efficient way to make water and to not use up a bunch of resources. Like, we all know how this kind of stuff is going to end. They, like, they don't move carefully, they don't end up missing. Like, because certain people don't want that kind of stuff to get out, because we know what happens. Anyways. So they find Hatch, and I can't get over this dude. He was talking about, because they kept saying, oh, their skin suit or whatever. And he gonna say, oh, who made your skin suit? Like, they did a really good job. And he was looking like at his nether regions. And I'm like, bro, get your freaking mind out of the gutter. Like, geez Louise, disgusting pervert. Anyways. And then they go with him to, he takes them to his sister, Edie, to try and pitch the idea. And they made that video and then uploaded it. And that really, I feel like that really got them the attention that they did not need. But even she was like, this is a joke. I'm giving you one last chance to try and prove yourself, but I know you're going to mess it up. Like, she had no absolute faith. Like, she was, he might as well have been dead to her. That's how done she was with him. And even he was like, oh God, I think I might have made a mistake. He was like, listen, I didn't sold all my assets to just even help us get here. So let's just do the best you can and try not to mess it up. And then they managed to get a lab after that. I'm like, okay, we making progress. They didn't build this whole machine to try and create the core and try to get on with it, basically. And then there was an equation, and then it gets down to basically there's an equation that she came up with, that Justine came up with, and she was like, so basically here's the deal. The patent, Faraday was like, okay, well, the patent doesn't make sense. Like, I don't understand what we're trying to build. It doesn't make sense. And then she was like, okay, well, we have an equation here, and here's the problem. So there's not a computer that exists that can help us simplify this equation. So we have to do it manually. And we can't simplify it too much, because if we do, everything's going to go kaplowy, kaboom, if you will. And I was like, I would not want to be in her shoes. I would not want to be her right now. And then them trying to like I said, navigate this equation, figure out what it is they were really trying to build, because he didn't even tell them that it was basically like an engine for the ship that he had. He didn't even tell them that. He was like, oh, I just need you to look at this design and build what you see. And he's just like, this don't make no sense. And all the while, he's trying to figure things out. He's still trying to navigate life like a drone. And then he has that little, I guess he was drunk. I don't know. Like, he was having those hallucinations, I guess it was, with that woman, Watt. And she was like, stop thinking like a drone. Like, look at eyes through their perspective and whatnot. And he was like struggling with that, because like I said, in his little world, to him, it was like, you're a drone, you do what you're told, you accomplish your job, and then you're out of here. If you're a burden to the rest of the group, or if you're slowing them down, which he labeled her father as like, basically like a burden that she needed to just get rid of so that he can help her, or she could help him accomplish the goal, you just get rid of him basically. And I'm not gonna lie to y'all, whenever he helped Josiah, I legit thought he was gonna choke him to death. I really did. Like when she wasn't in the room and he went in, like, and this was after they had gotten into it, and she was trying to tell him like, you don't say stuff like that about people. Like, that's my dad had been there. Like, he stuck by me when nobody else was around. And they tell you later on how, her mother, what happened with her mother basically. Like, her mother and her father, they were in love. And I guess they moved from the Bahamas to the States, and they had her. And I guess her mother just decided, I don't want to live in the States no more. I hate it here basically, which low key, I kind of understand. Like, don't judge me. And so she was like, I'm leaving basically. And I was like, I mean, I get it that sometimes people get like, I don't know if it was like homesickness or she just couldn't deal with like the culture here. Like she just wanted to be back at home. But I'm like, but ma'am, you have a whole wife, a whole husband and child. You have a whole family. You can't just leave your family because like you're homesick, or, it could be something deeper than that. But at the same time, I was like, but you have a family. You can't just leave your family. Like, I felt like that was a bit selfish of her, you know what I'm saying? And it could just be because, like, she was like, I want to go back to the Bahamas, and he was like, but I want to stay here. And because they couldn't come to a conclusion, she was like, we need to go our separate ways. And I was like, but that's still kind of messed up. But it was so, like I said, endearing. And they punched me in the feels, man, when they were showing that, and they were explaining what happened with that, and they showed like how, Josiah was like, don't worry, I'm not gonna walk away, and his daughter was like, I'm not gonna walk away either. And I was like, listen, I'm not trying to cry today. Y'all trying to make me cry. But anyways, I was saying all that to get to the point of, she was trying to help Faraday understand that, like, okay, back in Anthea, it's drones and add-ups. Y'all don't have feelings, y'all don't have emotions, y'all don't experience stuff like love, whatever. But here on Earth, you don't just throw people away because they're not like, they're a hindrance to the mission or whatever. She's trying to get him to understand that's not how it works here. And that if he wants her help, that he's gonna have to, get with the program. And he kind of was like he walked into the room, was like looking at him like in my mind, he was looking at him like, ugh, such a hold up, like y'all are wasting resources for him. And he puts his hand like on his chest, like close to his neck. Like I said, I'm being honest, I thought he was going to choke him to death. I was like, you ain't right, bro. She's never gonna listen to you now. She's never gonna go with you now. But then he basically just like, I guess, healed whatever I forgot what the condition was that he had. And I was like, oh, well, why didn't he do that before? Like, instead of saying all those mean, nasty words, why didn't he just do that before? But anyways, it ended up backfiring, of course, later on, because I think it had something to do with, like, he gave him some of his DNA, and as a result, it was starting to, like, change his own DNA, and, of course, the alien DNA was replicating faster than his, and he was becoming basically like a drone. Basically the way Faraday was whenever they first met him. And I was like, dang, that's not good. And they were making so much progress. And like I said, he had to keep, getting these meetings with Thomas Newton. And he was learning how to like turn on the TVs to where it creates interference. Because he found out that they were listening to his little conversations. He was like, oh, I got something for y'all. He turned on the TVs. And then like, she was like, what's happening? And Spencer was like, what's happening? Get us back online. And I was like, that's good for y'all. Mind your business. And he was talking to Thomas Newton. He was like, you didn't give me this design, and I don't even know what this is. And the interactions that he had between Thomas Newton, like the way he talked to him, I feel like he talked to him like an incompetent child. Like I was like, I felt like an incompetent child with the way he was talking to him. I was like, wow. And then there was that one part where whenever they came to the conclusion that they were going to have to basically put themselves out there, make themselves famous so that they wouldn't, get disappeared, if you get my drift, as easily. And he was telling them, oh, you gotta lie, just learn how to lie here and there, like look at life through their perspective, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm gonna get back to that later. But whenever he was telling them like be more like a human, or look at life through their perspective, and he was trying to like observe them, and he was like watching like their, like I said, the emotions like anger, rage, love, all the different emotions that they were experiencing. He was watching Justine and her family experience, and he was starting to finally kind of get the hang of it. And he was like trying to contact his wife. He was telling her, it was like, oh, wife, I have learned this new emotion called happiness, and blah 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 this and blah 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 that. He was starting to learn how to live life as a human. Let me go back to Edie. Whenever they first met Edie, and they were trying to like basically pitch the whole, quantum fusion thing and the little core. she was not having it. She was not buying it. It seemed like she was not buying it two for $1 at first. And it was kind of messed up when, like, of course, they're going to always do this stuff. They're going to always dig up dirt or find a background on the people who's trying to work with them. And she was like, oh, I see, Justin Falls, you were working in quantum fusion some time ago, some years ago, and you use, this young man who you had a romantic relationship with, and he died. And I was like, I mean, you didn't have to do sis like that. That's just, she was trifling for that, like bringing up, like I said, her past. And like I said, I get it. They've got to know about the people who they might be going into business with, but that was still messed up to do. And I was like, man, but I feel like it kind of came back to bite her. I feel like she kind of reaped the consequences, because basically Spencer did the same thing to her. Like, he basically was like, oh yeah, you need to work with me. Oh, no, there's no questioning. I'm telling you, you're going to work with me now, and I'll run this. Basically, he came in there, basically, I'll run you, and I'll run your company now. She was like, God dang it. And I'm like, there's always a bigger fish, right? And that was why they were even in the position to be able to watch them and listen to them to begin with. And he became more like that. That was another thing that I couldn't stand about him. Like, he became more and more obsessed with finding Thomas Newton, and just the obsession. And like I said, they went through they did his little background, traumatic backstory, where they were explaining that he was actually a Russian young man, a Russian boy, and his mother came to the States, but apparently she was like a terrorist. And then I guess she like rigged a whole building with some bombs, and like 13 people died. And the CIA busted in there and was like throwing him around. And I'm like, but what did the child do? And I get it, but what did the child do? And then that's when Drew came along and basically like stepped in the role of mother. And they, I guess he assumed that like she had died, or that she had like offed herself somewhere, but he didn't know for sure. And that obsession of not knowing, like, why, I guess she did what she did, why she abandoned him, and what happened really to her after that. I guess it bled over into the whole, like, Thomas Newton thing. And I was like, see, he's unhinged. He's a loose cannon. He's going to hurt somebody. He's going to kill somebody. Like, this is not good. Like, they need to get rid of him. And sure as we said it, like I said, he was so obsessed. Like, I'm thinking, I thought that he had, like, a lot of loyalty for Drew. But he threw her under the bus. Like, whenever she was like, listen, I don't care if you know where he is. I don't care if he's holding an iPhone right now and he just pinned his own location and text messaged it to you. You're not about to go down there to Cambodia and mess up something, because you're already on thin ice. And he was basically like, whatever. And he just did it on his own. And even Lisa was looking at him like, are you sure you have the clearance to do this? And he was like, yeah, we do. And then they didn't send all these men in there to get killed by, I don't even know what that was, some kind of alien spores. Listen, I don't know how many times we've seen this. How many alien movies do they have to make before we realize what to do in these situations? Like, I'm assuming that in this, like, universe of The Man Who Fell to Earth, that it's like the same as ours, like, that the alien movies exists. So at this point, why don't y'all know protocol? When you see alien spores, alien technology, or some sort of alien plant, you don't keep going. You run like heck in the opposite direction. You nope the heck out of there. No, what do? What is this? They step on it and then they watch the spores go up. I'm like, why aren't you running with your mouth and nose covered? Like, you don't know what that is. You don't know what that's gonna do. Like I said, there's been too many alien movies out there for them to be this stupid in these kind of situations. And then all of them died. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. And he was like, I was so close. He was right there in Cambodia. We found out that they had to have a certain level of altitude for them to be comfortable with their species or whatever. He was right there in Cambodia. And she was basically like, you didn't blow missiles out of your behind. I told you not to do that. Now we got to both get called into the office and we both about to get roasted. And he threw her under the bus. When he threw her under the bus, I was like, okay, maybe he didn't love her as much as as I thought he did. And maybe he did, but he was just so obsessed, like I said, with Thomas Newton that he like I said, he's a loose cannon now. And even Lisa was like, I did not sign up for this. I did not sign up to work for a crazy man. Like, I was just trying to do my job and work for my country. He done got us roped into some mess for real. And she's trying not to lose her mind, because she's still trying to come to grips with the fact that, Faraday is a legit alien. And so they're trying to watch him. And then, of course, eventually Hatch and Justin find out that they're like, they're not gonna let us keep this machine once we turn it on and crank it up and really get it started. Like, they're probably gonna put bullets all in all our heads and then take it. And so they finally found out, of course, after, Faraday was, like I said, experiencing these emotions, and learning these, like, new, like, terms, like improv, and all that kind of stuff, and music and jazz. It wasn't until after that he realized that they were going about the equation in the wrong way. And I thought that was, like, so cool. They were like, okay, we've been using electromagnetic waves. And then, like I said, after Josiah became a drone, basically, he was writing those numbers on the wall. And he was like, what do these numbers mean? Like, this doesn't make sense. And then they started thinking back to, like, of course, when he went to the guitar shop, and then he, I guess, had like a sort of like a stroke. And I'm assuming that it was because his DNA was changing so much, or his body, his genetic makeup was, like, changing so much, especially, like, in his brain, that his brain couldn't handle it. And maybe it was just like an overload, basically. And they started to put two and two together, and they were like, wait a minute, it's not electromagnetic waves, it's sound waves. And they were like, here, like, it's a frequency. And then they realized that it was like music, basically. I thought that was absolutely brilliant, like genius, like, because I like music and I am a piano player. And like I said, they hit me in the feels again whenever they brought him to the piano and they were, like, playing. And then, like, Faraday started playing with him. She was, like, basically, like, pointing them in the right direction, like, do that again, go up an octave, like, stay right there, oh no, it's too busy, make it a little more simpler, okay, do that again. And then they actually finally simplified the equation. And God, I was like, hot diggity dog, y'all did it. And I was like, wow. And then it was cool watching, like I said, whenever they finally did simplify it, watching it like on the screen, how it was like a perfect match, and it was, like, stable. And then it started, like, rotating, and then the lights came on, and they were, like, all happy, and like, we did it. As soon as they got that up and running, I was like, now here's where the real problem comes in, because now, like, they're in danger. And of course, that was when, like I said, Spencer was trying to, like, he found out, because of course Lisa went and told him, oh yeah, they got the core up and running now. He was like, all right, we're gonna take it now. And Faraday was like, okay, what do we do now? And Justin was like, listen, like, here on Earth, like, it's different. Like, they're going to not want this to get out for their own greed reasons. So we need to take this and we need to run, because this is not going to go the way we want it to. And so they managed to get the core. They deleted all the stuff. They trashed the stuff. And he was like, look, you need to take the core and you need to escape. She was like, and just leave you behind? He was like, yeah. And so he gives it to Josiah. And so Josiah was like, all right, let's go. And, like, he's still in the drone mindset. And she leaves. And of course, just like the first episode, like I said, this was like one of the later episodes closer to the end. She was driving away as he was trying to deal with Spencer, and he didn't put, like, all this, like, explosive substances on the floor. And he was like, where's the core? And where's the girl? And he was like, and he was like, listen, tell us where it is. And why are they so trigger happy? Especially considering certain people, don't even get me started. So trigger happy. Shot him. I was like, oh great, they shot him. He's gonna die. But he can't die because of the beginning of the series, right? And then the explosion. And so Justin was like, we have to go back. And I was like, it came full circle. She's like, we have to go back for him. And she goes back. And then they get him, and then they bring him to the nunnery. Is it a nunnery? I can't remember what it was called. Like the sisters, basically the nuns. And the head nun, she, they had revealed earlier that she had a whole relationship with Thomas Newton. And I was like, but wasn't this guy married and had kids? But anyways, and that she had felt, like, guilty or bad because she introduced him to, like, Jen, basically. I guess she felt like she had corrupted him or whatever. And it was really sad. And I was like, man, like, she's kind of, like, broken and missing him and, whatnot. And so she was like, she realized what they were. She was like, I'm going to help y'all. And I was like, dang, they didn't got somebody else roped into this. And of course, they came up there, and I was so mad. Like, they shot the nun. Who shoots a nun? I'm just like, bro, you gonna get to the pearly gates, and God is gonna send you on the elevator going down. Like, you shot a nun. And then they just left Josiah on the table after he gave Faraday a transfusion, and then punched Justin in the face and took them. And I was like, oh God, they're going to wake up and they're going to be losing teeth and fingers and fingernails. And that's what they tried to do to Faraday, but it just didn't work. But then, he was like, wait a minute, wasn't there something that they were weak to? And at least it was like the x-ray. He was like, bring the x-ray machine in here. And he was like, oh no. And I was like, oh no. Because he was doing good. I was like, oh, he's doing good. But then they brought that x-ray machine up in there, and they started messing him up. And he was like, don't worry, I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to I'm going to make you wish you were dead. Meanwhile, Lisa's talking to Justine, and she's like, you can tell she's like, I still have a job to do, but I don't want to have to interrogate you to do it. And Justine was like, you still standing in my face, so that don't matter to me at all. And then he starts to, the part where he starts to play Russian roulette, which, like I said, Watt had came back and was like, you're going to have to think, because if you don't give them something, even if it's a lie, they're going to shoot her. And of course he was like, oh, it's a ship. He built a ship, but he can't bring them, all here. Well, they didn't find out about that later, but he was like, it's a ship that he brought, and that the core is basically like the ship's, engine or whatever. And he was like, oh, he's trying to bring them over here. Is it an invasion? He's, stupid idiot. But anyways, then he starts playing Russian roulette, literally. And this man, he was like, I'll give you 5 questions. And if you don't, like, I'll turn that machine back on myself. And all of the information about the quantum fusion will die with me. And you won't get nothing. And he was like, okay, fine. And he was like, ask him stuff like, okay, what are you? He was like, well, there's drones and there's adepts. Roll the revolver. And he was like the way he was like sweating and shaking, he like rolls the revolver and puts it to his head. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I was like, I hope he blows his brains out. I do. Because I kept telling y'all, he's a loose cannon. And I wanted him gone because he shot those nuns. Like, he was just doing too much. He was throwing people under the bus. I was like, he's got to go. He's dangerous. And the way he kept saying, like, he was like, what are you going to tell me? That my mother abandoned me? That she didn't actually abandon me? That she was set up and all this kind of stuff? He's like, I can live with that. I was laughing. I'm sorry. I was laughing at him. And he kept saying, I can live with that. I can live with that. Like, him trying to get more information, but really deep down inside not wanting to know, because he didn't really know he could live with it. Because him saying, I can live with that, he was trying to convince himself of that. And he was like, is that your pet question? And I was like, this is getting intense. And I wanted him so bad to shoot himself. I did. And you guys, I was like, okay, look, you've got a 1 in 5 chance of shooting yourself 5 times. You mean to tell me that 1/5 couldn't come through 1 time? And it didn't. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And then that was when, like, the guy was about to, like, I guess, torture Justine. And I was like, see, this girl, she's smart. She's brilliant. I would have never thought of that. She had, I think it was like flammable oil in her mouth. I was like, girl, you better than me, because I probably would have gotten scared and accidentally swallowed it. And she spat it at him when he lit that cigarette up. And then, of course, Lisa came in. She was looking at Lisa like, if you really meant what you said, like, help me. And she shot him. All you hear is gunshots. And of course, Faraday is like, he's still trying to keep his cool and go through with it. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. She decided to do the right thing. I'm sorry. And she shot him. She needed to shoot him. And of course, even though he threw Drew under the bus, Drew was like, don't thank me for, like, making it seem like he killed himself, because you still shot him and I still cared about him as a son. And I'm like, even after he threw you under the bus? But I think all she cared about was getting the aliens. And so she even went to Justine at the very end and was like, look, they're not going to let me walk away from this. So, and she was talking about what she had told her, like how she should have been ashamed of herself of what she was doing. And she was like, take my cross, because I don't even want it on me. Like, when they do what I know they're about to do. And she was talking about and then that's the part I forgot to mention. The whole part with Mr. Thorne and the guy, I think his name was Hemming, that was like under him, that Hatch had met with, Hatch and Edie, and they were trying to get them on their side so that they could fight with the CIA, basically. They were like, the only person that we can get to go up against Spencer Clay and the CIA is this guy, Mr. Thorne, and Big Oil. And, like, of course, like, everybody was like, well, wait a minute. Big Oil? Really? Like, Big Oil to help you fight against somebody to use clean energy? But anyways, he comes to Hatch after, like I said, Spencer spoke too much and let him know, hey, like, your brother gaslit you and that he did lie to you. And so he was by himself and he was talking about I felt bad for him, I did, but I was like, hey, listen, he did make some mistakes. He's not a bad person, but he's gonna have to make up for it somehow. And he was talking about, like, oh, I shouldn't be alone, because, like, he felt like offing himself. And I was like, come on, bro. Go hang out with Justine and Faraday if that's how you really feel. And he was talking to the guy and he was like, Mr. Thorne would like to buy your shares of Origin. He was like, there is no Origin. Like, we can't do it because the machine is gone. Like, the lab is destroyed. I'm not even really in Origin. My sister threw me under the bus. Like, There's no, like, I have no shares, essentially. You're buying nothing. And he was like, 15 million to buy your shares of Origin. He was like, you're buying nothing. Why would you want to buy nothing unless you really wanted nothing? And he was like, let's just say we really want it. And he was like, bull crap. And he was like, 15 million. And he was like, and then he proceeds to milk it. He was like, 50 million. And he was like, fine. And he was like, no kidding, 60 million. I'm like, really, bro? Just take the money. He was like, 60 million. And he was like, okay, but just give it to Edie. And he was like, why? And he was like, just, and I guess he was trying to make up for what he did, I guess. But I was like, bro, you need that. You don't have a job now, basically. So you need that 60 million. Forget your sister. Keep that 60 million because you ain't got a job, remember? Anyways. So then, as they're being interrogated, of course, Lisa was in contact with somebody. And I was trying to figure out who it was. First, I thought it was Drew, but of course, she did go to Drew for help later on. But it was basically Mr. Thorne and the guy that was under him. And so the guy was like, look, I'm going to take you to Mr. Thorne. This is all going to be sorted out. You agree to come with us. Afterwards, you can go back to your life. And Justin was like, I'm sick of this. Like, fine, just take us to the guy. And in my mind, it was because of him telling Hatch, like, we want to buy Origin, but like, even though it's like nothing to you, we want to buy it. I was like, that's suspicious though. And I don't blame him for asking him, like, are you sure? And then him saying, just come with us, we'll take you to Mr. Thorne. Because this Mr. Thorne character just came out of left field, like out of the blue. And I'm like, who is this dude that just popped up? And I'm like, if it turns out that Mr. Thorne is Thomas Newton, I'm gonna be pissed. Lo and behold, they are back in Cambodia. Oh, well, they never went to Cambodia, like physically. I think like it was in his mind for Faraday, but they went to physically Cambodia and found out that Mr. Thorne was Thomas Newton the entire time. I was like, so ain't no Mr. Thorne, it's just been this dude all the time. He was like, oh, I see you finally made it over here. And then, of course, Faraday was pissed and they were like fighting. He was like screaming at him because he was like, so you lied to me. Like, and he found out that he lied to him, that he never intended to help Faraday get back home, that the entire intention was to bring Anthea to Earth, basically bring the Antheans to Earth. Like, there was no, oh, we're going to save this planet, we're going to save your planet, and you're going to go back home to your family. There was no, I'm bringing them here, and the humans are the new drones. And she was like, have you lost your mind? Justin was like, we're not about to do that. You're not about to make people like how my father was. Like, that's not about to happen. Like, we have, like, singular goals and, dreams and, feelings. Like, you're not about to do that to us. And even, like, Faraday was like, no, you're not going to do that to them. And he was like, well, what else are we supposed to do? Like, his whole entire attitude was like, this is the way it's going to be. I'm saving them. I'm saving this crap of a planet. They don't even care about the planet they're ruining. Like, I'm saving it for them. Like, they should be grateful. Like, what else are we going to do? And then to make it worse, he was basically like, now, wait a minute. That ship is not even big enough to bring all the Antheans here. And he was like, yeah, it's only going to be the adepts. And he was like, so what about my family? And I was like, he didn't use this man all this time and had no intentions of bringing his family to Earth with him. I was like, wow, talk about throw me under the bus. He was like, I'm not doing nothing until you agree to bring my family. He was like, maybe, I don't know. It was just his whole attitude that just was the audacity. And so Justin was like, this is crazy. I'm not giving him the equation. He was like, listen, just give her the equation. Just give him the equation and I will do my best to try and stop him from doing this. She was like, how am I supposed to trust you? Like, how am I supposed to know that you're going to do this for me? And that was the other part that hit me in the feels when he was like, because I love you. I love you. I love your daughter, basically. And she was like, you don't even know what love is. And I was like, okay, she has a point there. But then he had a valid point. He was like, how can I not know after spending the time I spent with you? Like, how you take care of your father, how you love your daughter. Like, you are love. Like, I can't not know what love is after spending all that time with you. And I was like, dang it. They even fell in love with each other, basically. And she was like, fine. And she went ahead and gave him the equation. And Thomas Newton was like, I don't know how you did it, but good job. And it was kind of sad because he was, like I said, he was mad. He was very upset with Thomas Newton for what he had done. But, and he was trying to tell him, like, I'm going to find a way to bring them all here. And he laughed in his face. And I feel like he was trying to appeal to some humanity that was not there with Thomas Newton, because I do think that Thomas Newton did care about him like a son, because as he had mentioned, he had lost all his children, but he did care about him. And I think he was trying to appeal to that because he was like, we can't just leave the rest of them there to die, because he wasn't thinking like a drone anymore, remember? And like I feel like he kind of blindsided him, like think more like a human a little bit, like to accomplish this goal, but then use your drone lack of humanity to finish the job. You know what I'm saying? So she gives him the equation. She goes back home. At first she was like, I'm done with this. But it was her father, after he finally got back to normal, it was like, you gotta help him. Like, you gotta see this through. Like, what little time I got, I'm gonna spend it believing that he's gonna do the right thing. He's gonna do this. He could do this. And then they met that one last time, and this is after like he had finally like came out as K Faraday, and the CIA still tried to snatch him up, and they did, but he had them on lock. He was like, look, we've got the patent to upload within 12 hours. If anything happens to us, it's gonna be on the internet. Everybody gonna have it for free. Is that what you want? And it's not what you want. So you can let us go. You're gonna give origin to her, and you're gonna give all, Mr. Thorne, all that stuff's gonna be him. Hatch. And I thought that was really cool, because this man then sat down and found out from his nephew that his sister killed their father. Now, I don't agree with how he basically verbally and emotionally abused her, but that's no excuse to push your father off of a cliff. I was like, so this woman didn't push this man this whole time. She's a murderer. She needs to be in prison. And I'm like, and I felt bad, like I said, for her son, because I don't feel like she did him right. And then, like, I'm just like, could you imagine the trauma he had to deal with, knowing that all this time, and then he finally opened up to his uncle, and he was just sitting there, and I'm like, bro, what do you expect your uncle to do now? Like, there's nothing he can do now. And so I thought it was nice of him to do what he did for Hatch, because, like, despite what happened, like I said, she didn't even want them. Like, he was the one who brought them to Origin, so he needed that. Anyways, I was like, wow, this woman done killed her. And then he goes to talk to her, try to get back in her graces one good time. And I guess some relationships are just, they're not going to come back. And I'm like, bro, why are you even on that cliff? Like, this is the same cliff that she pushed your father off of. I wouldn't even be talking to her. We would be meeting at a restaurant where there's cameras everywhere. But anyways, after all of that, he meets with her one last time. And that part where he said, it was always you, it's always gonna be you. I was like, man, punch me in the feels. And then him basically trying to go back to Anthea to bring them back, after he, successfully secured it with the CIA that they're not going to like attack them and kill them after they get there, which we still don't know that could be a possible thing. And then that one moment that they had where he kissed her, I was like, well, at first I was like, I guess like romantic kind of, but at the same time, he's an alien, I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. And then too, like with him having a family basically, and I guess it's basically like what happened to Thomas Newton, And so I was like, dang, wow. And then he leaves on the ship to go back to Anthea. And that's how they basically left us, not knowing whether he made it there, made it back, and it successfully did what he set out to do. And I was like, well, I'll be doggone. And then, lo and behold, I do research to see if there's even going to be a season 2, when there's going to be a season 2. Ain't no season 2. They ain't doing no season 2. I was mad. Now maybe they'll change that in the future, but I'm not gonna hold my breath on it. But I was like, man, like I said, the whole like fallen angel thing didn't sit right with me, and the thing they were talking about with the Nephilim, and like I said, if you read the Bible or did any research, like why that's bad news. But other than that, it seemed more of like the whole love aspect, and like somebody changing who they are because of somebody else's example. Like I said, like with him learning how to love from her and her family. That hit me in the feels. That was deep to me. But like I said, this series was really good. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I wish I would have started watching it sooner. And shout out to the person who told me about this in the comments of it was some episodes, some videos ago. And so I was like I said, I didn't even know about this series until they was like, hey, you should check out this series. So thank you for that, because this was good. Like I kind of wanted to cry at the end, because I was like, well, we don't know if he's coming back, but I guess we can make up our own story afterwards, since they're not gonna give us a season 2 possibly. But anyways, y'all tell me what y'all think down in the comments below.